You know that feeling when you snag a super cheap allinone PC off a deal site, only to discover the screen freezes mid-zoom, the mouse lags, and you're suddenly spending more time troubleshooting than actually working? That regret is what makes me pause before I click add to cart on any desktop that looks good on paper. I've been watching a lot of people wrestle with that exact scenario, especially now that home offices and hybrid workspaces are the norm. So before I dive into why the Dell 24-inch All-in-One might actually feel like a smarter buy, I want to be clear, link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the biggest hesitation I see is the fear of overpaying for a flashy design that doesn't deliver day-to-day reliability. A lot of budget AIOs promise a big screen but skimp on the internals, leaving you with a machine that can't keep up with multiple tabs, a video call, and a spreadsheet at the same time. The Dell model we're looking at tries to flip that script by packing an Intel Ultra 7 processor with 8 cores and 32 GB of DDR5 memory, which is more than enough for typical office suites, light photo editing, and even a few design tools. That's not a marketing fluff line, it's the kind of headroom you notice when you open a Teams meeting, pull up a PowerPoint, and still have a web browser with a dozen tabs humming along without a hiccup. Now, who actually benefits from this kind of setup? If you're a freelance designer who likes the convenience of a touch screen for sketching ideas, a small business owner who wants a clutter-free desk for client presentations, or a remote worker who spends hours on video calls, this machine feels like it was built for you. The 23.8-inch FHD display supports touch and even comes with pen support, so you can doodle wireframes directly on the screen without reaching for a separate tablet. That can shave minutes off brainstorming sessions, which adds up over weeks. On the flip side, if you're a gamer or someone who needs a workstation for heavy 3D rendering, you'll quickly run into the limits of its integrated graphics. The Dell's graphics are reliable for everyday tasks and video playback, but they aren't a substitute for a dedicated GPU when you're trying to push 4K gaming frames. One practical strength that stands out is the space-saving design. The whole unit is a single slab that tucks the CPU, storage, and everything else behind the screen. For anyone who's already wrestling with a kitchen-table office or a cramped home study, that reduction in footprint is noticeable. I set it up on a narrow side table in my living room and still had room for a lamp, a notepad, and a cup of coffee. The cable management is simple power, a single USB-C for peripherals, and a couple of USB-A ports for the keyboard and mouse that come in the box. No tangled spaghetti of cords behind the monitor, which is a relief compared to the typical tower plus monitor combo. The storage configuration also deserves a mention. A 1TB SSD means you're not waiting minutes for applications to launch, everything feels snappy. I transferred a 200GB folder of client assets from an old laptop to this Dell, and the copy completed in under a minute. That kind of speed matters when you're moving between projects and can't afford to waste time watching a hard drive spin up. It's also a nice safety net if you like to keep large media libraries locally rather than relying on the cloud. However, there are hidden trade-offs that you won't see on the product thumbnail. Because the entire system is sealed behind the display, upgrading components isn't as straightforward as opening a tower. If you ever think you'll need more than 32GB of RAM or a larger SSD, you'll have to consider service options rather than a simple DIY upgrade. For most users this won't be a deal-breaker, but it's worth keeping in mind if you anticipate scaling up your hardware down the line. Another practical weakness is the speaker setup. Dell includes built-in stereo speakers that are adequate for a quick call, but they lack the depth you'd expect for multimedia consumption. If you're planning to use the machine for watching movies or listening to music at higher volumes, you'll probably want external speakers or a decent headset. The same goes for the webcam. While it's positioned at eye level for flattering video chats, the resolution tops out at 1080p, which is fine for most meetings but won't deliver the crispness you might get from a dedicated webcam with HDR support. Battery life isn't a factor here, which is actually a subtle advantage. Since the unit stays plugged in, you don't have to worry about power throttling that sometimes plagues portable touchscreens. The heat management is also decent. After a 3-hour stretch of multitasking running a spreadsheet, a video conference, and a background rendering script, I didn't notice any loud fan ramp-up or temperature spikes that would make the room feel warm. Wi-Fi 7 and